As Keely said, my name is Dr. Martin Reed, and I'm a lecturer within the Department of Computer Science and Electronic Engineering here at the University of Essex, although currently not really here, as I've got a virtual background and I'm actually at home, of course, giving this talk. So I'd like to talk to you about network security and about some of the things we do at Essex. Just a very brief thing about myself. So I'm a lecturer in the department, senior lecturer in the department, so I teach network security. But I'm also part of a €5 million European project, which is looking at how we improve the security for the internet. So we're not just people who teach it, we're also people that are very much active at the forefront of the research as well, looking at how things can move forwards. And what I'd like to do is give you just a little taster today and tell you about our security. So we teach security in our courses here at the University of Essex across all of our computer science courses. Also, there's computer network courses, and it's available as options in other courses as well. You have to look at individual courses to see which ones are available. And there are two core modules, I should say, we call them, where we teach security. The first is in the second year, where we do a computer security course. And then, of course, in the final year, you'll see the title C324, I teach network security. And during it, we introduce things like ethical hacking. So it seems strange to some people, but the way in which you teach computer security, at least in the West, not every country does it this way, but at least in the West, is that you teach people how the attackers operate, and then give people a chance to sort of explore and play with that. And then, of course, using that, you can see how to defend and stop the attackers. So ethical hacking is actually part of courses. And what I'd like to do in this talk today is just give you a taster of what you might see in a final year lecture. It's shorter. Obviously, I'm pitching it for people who haven't done the first year maths course, the second year course on computer security, all that. So it'll be pitched at your level. And there'll be a tiny bit of maths just to show you, what can be done and how it all works. There've been examples of ethical hacking exactly as it's carried out in our lab sessions. Our students do the kind of hacking that I'll be showing you today. And we'll just give some general network security tips. Now, I'm sure all of you know about it, but just a reminder about some things you can tell your parents, your friends, about the security they should be taking care of while using the internet. And of course, as Keely said, if you want to ask questions, you can ask them in the chat. I think you can ask them anonymously as well if you're a bit not sure, but it's all anonymous anyway. But feel free to ask questions. There'll be time at the end where I can ask questions. I'll be keeping an eye out on the Zoom chat, so you can ask questions during it, and I might stop and say oh, well, let's just look and see what's said in the chat during it. So that's what we'll be doing today. Okay, so let's have a little look about what we might be doing in one of our security lectures. So the problem is, how can we transmit data over the internet securely? And it seems obvious, we'll use encryption. Okay, I think we've all heard of some sort of encryption. You might have played around with, I remember when I was even in primary school playing around with simple ciphers. You take letters of the alphabet and you can just change them around, a substitution cipher as it's called. And that allows, of course, things to be sent securely over the internet. Now that sounds straightforward. It might seem that that's the way to do it, but that's not the problem. If I just give you a hint here as to why that is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give quite a visual demonstration here. I'm going to get rid of the slides and you'll see, we'll go through it in a moment together. So the problem is not, in fact, how to do encryption. The problem is going to be how you send the keys. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. And that's what the students look at during the course. One of the things they look at, and that the hacking thing we'll be looking at as well. So first of all, I'm going to talk about symmetric encryption. I'm not really going to explain what it is, but just in terms of the keys, what we mean. And then we'll look at something called public key encryption. That's the real topic the students will be looking at in the course. And then we'll show that whereas that seems like it's the answer, even that has its problems as well, as we'll see. And that'll lead on to some practical internet security that you can share around your friends and family. When they ask questions about, oh, how does this work? You'll be able to explain them after this, I'm sure. So what we'll be considering is client-server communication between a client and a server. And in a lot of internet security, we actually call these often, the client's often Alice, and the server's often Bob. And what I'm going to do now is actually stop sharing my screen and just talk in front of this slide. So let me see if I can do that. So you should be able to see me, I hope. Keely, just confirm if you can.
Yeah, that's fine, Martin.
Fine.
Yep.
So I'm going to talk in front of this. Hopefully you can see the slide, not the settings diagram I've got inside. So I've got, as you can see, over here is Alice, who wants to talk to Bob over here, okay? So we're going to move information from Alice all the way over to Bob. And in the middle here, often in the terminology it's called Mallory, but it's going to be Martin, me, today, is the man in the middle, okay? And the man in the middle is going to be an attacker, all right? And normally I've got a box at work that I do for this demonstration, but it's my sewing box today at home. And what we're going to do is we're going to send a message, and it happens to be some maths that I've been working on a piece of paper. And Alice wants to send it securely to Bob. So what they've got to do, of course, is put it in the box. And the box is a network packet. You've got to imagine it's a network packet. Put it inside there, and of course, send it to Bob. Now, the problem with this is, of course, me, Martin, the evil man in the middle, all I have to do is capture the packet, open it up, steal the important mathematical equation that I'm trying to patent at the moment. That's for real, actually. I am working, it's not this one, but I am actually working on a patent with BT at the moment. And, you know, I can steal it, look at it, change it, and then send it on to Bob. And Bob won't, you know, necessarily know that I've looked in it. And that's not good enough. We need encryption. So the analogy I want to give you is that encryption is like a padlock, okay, and a key. Now the key is my piece of paper here. It's a number, and that's in the real, you know, encryption system. It's a number. It's going to be, you know, it's not really, it's 4321. It's not a very secure one, but imagine it's a very secure key, very long, difficult. So I can use that to open up the padlock. And all Alice has to do, of course, is first of all put the important mathematical message in that we're going to patent later inside the box. Of course, we've got the key, the padlock, sorry. Do that up with the key, secure it, move the things around. Goes to Mallory. Mallory can't look inside it because it's padlocked up. Gets to Bob. Bob also has a copy of the key. So all Bob has to do is, of course, open up the padlock to the right number, open it up, and of course you've got the message inside. So that's you know, we're talking about. Now that is commonly available. That's using some sort of cipher. And there are many types. Advanced encryption ciphers, AES security is one of them. But you know, I'm not going to go into how those work or what they are. But it requires two things. It requires the cipher, that's like the padlock, I suppose, and it requires the key. The key is just the combination to this padlock. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that, of course, how do we get this key that Alice has used to do up the padlock, stand in front of it like that, of course, to Bob? Well, Alice can send it in a network. So all Alice has to do is put the key inside a network packet, transmit the key to Bob. Bob can open it up, and of course, then can read the key, which I've lost in my sewing box somewhere. So now Bob has the key, and now Alice can. Now there is a problem in there. Of course, the same as we had with the original message. So when we sent the message without a padlock on, I, Martin, the evil hacker in the middle, just open the box up and look inside. And in fact, exactly the same with the key. If the key is sent in a network packet, of course, all I have to do as the attacker is open it up, sneak a look at the key, and of course, then all I have to do is use that key to undo the padlock as it goes across, look at the message, do it back up again, send it to Bob. So that isn't going to work. And so what it shows is that the padlock, I'm going to pretend, is very good. In fact, the algorithms we use for encryption can't be broken today. No one can break them. The good algorithms, AES being one of them, use 256-bit keys. That's 2 to the power 256. That is a huge number. So many variations that nobody can break the padlock. The problem is, how do we send this key across the network? Well, so that's the problem, sending the key. And what happened is that some very clever people, in fact, the very first one was someone from the UK who worked at GCHQ and invented something in the early 70s. But it was so secret that we never found out about it because it was hidden inside the Official Secrets Act. But in 1977, I'm just going to just very briefly show you the slides again now. Just share my screen. So if I look, they invented, now here's the maths I warned you about. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I will come back to it in a little bit. They basically, so Rivest, Shamir and Alderman in 1977 invented a mathematical way of doing a very clever thing with those keys and padlocks that I talked about. I'll come back to this in a moment, exactly how they did it. But let's just look at it from a visual point of view to understand what's happening. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my visual here. So let's see how it works. So same deal. We want to send my important message, the mathematical analysis I'm doing for my patent, from Alice to Bob. The clever bit is this. In the first time, what we did was Alice had the padlock and they had a key. And the clever bit is this. We're going to completely reverse it. Now, for Alice to send a message to Bob, what's going to happen over here at Bob? Bob is going to generate an infinite number of padlocks. Okay, so we just buy on Amazon, you know, or other, you know, on-time retail supply, of course, hundreds of these padlocks and set them all to exactly the same key, you know, 4, 3, 2, 1. Actually, no, we're going to change it. Different key, of course, needs to be secure. We're going to change it to 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, and that's going to be called my private key. Now, I don't send that to anyone. Bob, sorry, I'm now being Bob, not Martin. Bob will keep that key absolutely secure, but they'll have an infinite number of padlocks that they can set. Now, these padlocks, you can change the key. So, you know, imagine I've changed the key to 5, 4, 3, 2. And what I do is I don't lock it up. Bob just buys all these padlocks and just sends them to anyone that wants one. So Alice just receives one of these unlocked padlocks, and now look and see how it works. So now you can see how this public key cryptography works. Okay, so Alice wants to send this important message. I won't bother putting it in the box. What do they do? Well, Alice has got one of the infinite number of keys that Bob has generated, which are unlocked. All Alice has to do is put the message in the network packet, which is the encryption algorithm, do it up, and nice click when I've done it up. Once I've done it up, once Alice does it up, nobody can open it. Alice can't open it because they don't know what the padlock combination is. Over here, Martin, I'm the evil attacker, I receive it. I can't undo it either because I don't know what the key is. So over here, Bob now receives it. Bob, of course, has a copy of the private key. So all Bob has to do is to, of course, unlock the padlock and get the message. So that is how public cryptography works. Okay, just a little bit about the maths. I promised you to see some maths in here. Now this is actually the slide that we used during the lecture. So you know, it's the sort of thing that you'd see in a final year lecture course. So I'm not going to go through it in great detail. In fact, it's the second year course that learned this, and we use it in the final year course in more detail. All I want to do is just look at the very bottom here, the last two lines that say how you encrypt a message and how you decrypt it. And if you look at it, M is the message, it's just a number. Okay, so you can represent everything as a number. And to encrypt it, which is C, what we call the cryptotext, all you have to do is take the message, a number, and raise it to a power that's going to be a public key. Everyone can know this, E. And then to decrypt it, all that has to happen is that the Bob takes the cryptographic message, C, raises it to the power D, which has been generated using all this stuff above. And it turns out that when you do this operation, out pops the message. So it's a two-part algorithm, and they're different. The encryption is different from the decryption. Okay. Now, what's interesting is you can understand how this works. So its analogy is this: if I asked all of you to, if I said what the result of adding two numbers up were, and I told you one of the numbers in the answer, you could very easily tell me what the missing number was. So you did that in primary school when you first learned to add up numbers. You know, you had 1 plus blank equals 3, well, the blank must be 2. Now, if I said to you a slightly different thing, I said, well, the answer is C, the cryptotext. The message I'm not going to tell you, but it's raised to some power that we don't know. It would be very, very difficult to discover what D is because it's raised to a power. So, for example, if I said to you 8 equals 2 to something, you can very easily see that it's 2 to the power 3. Okay, 2 to the power 3 is 8. But if I said to you it's some huge number raised to some huge number of power of 2, you'd find it incredibly difficult to work out what that is. And that's how the principle works. So you'll learn about that during the course. And it uses one other thing that makes it even harder. It uses what's called modular arithmetic. And you can understand modular arithmetic fairly easily. I'll take my hand. Maybe I'll do it this one, actually, because it's probably the right way around for you. So imagine I count from 0. So my thumb is going to be 0. And I do 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to be modulo 4. Well, if I do 1 plus 4 in modular arithmetic, I go around in circles. So I do 0, 1 plus 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I get back to 0. So the answer is 0. So 1 plus 4 modulo 5 is 0. And in fact, it uses that as well. So it's not just using things raised to a power. It uses this clock arithmetic. And it turns out it's a very sophisticated math that we don't actually study as computer scientists or network engineers. The mathematicians do that. They give it to us. We say, that's what's called the discrete logarithm problem. It's an incredibly difficult problem to solve. So that's what makes, that is everything that keeps secure on the internet today. So I wanted to tell you about it so that you can see how it actually operates. Okay, it's not actually too difficult to understand those two lines. The bit above it is incredibly difficult to understand as to why it's secure. We just have to rely upon the mathematicians having got it right. So that is the algorithm that's keeping us secure on the internet today. There's only one problem. We haven't quite finished this yet, this story. And the issue is this. Remember, we went back and said, well, how do we get a message from Alice to Bob securely? Well, there is a problem here. So we thought we got round it again, because we got round it by having these public key ciphers that where Bob has his infinite number of padlocks that they send out opened. The problem is this: the man in the middle can still fool persons. Here's what happens. Bob generates an infinite number of padlocks and keeps their private key absolute private. They send all of those public key padlocks out in the internet to everyone. But here's what happens. Martin, me, the evil attacker, takes the padlock. I don't send it. I've got my own padlock, which I open up and I send to Alice. Alice thinks the padlock came from Bob, but actually I've replaced it with my evil padlock. It looks identical in many ways. It's a public key system. Alice can't necessarily know that I've done this task. And what does Alice do? Well, Alice locks up the box with their secure public key, click, sends it over the internet. Me, Martin, the evil attacker, I can undo this, look inside the box, change the message or read it, then put on Bob's public key and then send it on to Bob. Bob doesn't know that I've done that switch, so they think they've received it securely from Alice. And they don't know that maybe me, Martin, the evil attacker, has changed the thing in the middle. So in fact, although we've got a seeming solution, we're just back at square one again. We've got to get things secure across the internet. And that's one of the things the students will study during the course. So let's just have a look at that now. So if I just start. Okay, let's look at these slides. So the next slide is this one here. So this is what the man in the middle does. Okay, and this is a real lecture slide, so it's got more complexity in it than I want to talk about in this course. But I thought just you'd want to see sort of things we're looking at. But let's actually see what the students do live in the lab. So what I have here is an example of the hacking environment that we give to all our final year students. In fact, what happens? Every student's given a USB stick. And that USB stick is given for the length of the course. It contains what we call virtual machines. And on that, they can do all sorts of hacking and securing and investigation. And if they break it, doesn't matter. You can just restart all over again. So I've got that environment here as well. And what I'm going to do is just go to a website. So let's have a look at the University of Essex website. And you should all know, I'm going to talk more about this, that the way we access those public key type of security using HTTPS. You can see I'm typing in there into the screen, HTTPS into the browser, and we're going to go to the University of Essex. Now it's actually a fake University of Essex website, but here I've loaded it up, and I can see it's secure. It's got the padlock there. It's verified by the University of Essex. Okay, so that seems well and good, but in fact, what I've got is one machine in the middle here called a man in the middle. In fact, I can open that up now. Let's just check if I can I'm actually sharing the screen. I think I am. Yeah, there we go. So I'm over here. I've logged into the University of Essex, but I can start a man in the middle attack. So I'm here on a gateway somewhere between Alice, the client, and Bob, the server. Here I'm being Martin, the evil attacker, on the gateway, and I can start the man in the middle attack. When I do that, I'm looking at every single packet that goes through the network between these two people. And when I can do that, I can then just refresh the page. We can see, I don't know if you can see on the right there, there's some things scrolling. We can see all of the messages that are going through the network. Let me put my username and password in. So MJ Reed, my very secret password. And I can sign in to the University of Essex securely, okay? Now, what's happened there? You can see how clearly you can see this on the right-hand side, but I can see every single message that's gone through the network. And one of them in particular I'm looking for, let's scroll all the way down. It does also show you how much complexity it is. You think you're getting a web page, but of course a web page actually fetches many messages across the network. Let's have a look at the message that I looked at, and I've actually managed to decrypt it. I don't know if you can see at the bottom there, but you can see that what I've managed to do in this hacking environment, in the bottom screen, I'll just make the screen even bigger there. You can see that this thing in the middle, the man in the middle, has been able to find my username and my password by essentially using that technique I told you about. So pretending to be a secure environment, but then faking the certificates that go across the network. So you have to be very careful. Even though on the left-hand side, it looks like we've got a padlock. It looks like it's HTTPS secure. That's what that means. HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, S for secure. Actually, it's like slightly different, but it's good enough. It's still possible to break it open. Now, the way that I did this, the way the students that learn how to do this, is that what I've done, what you haven't seen, is that there's actually one more fix to this whole mechanism. So if I just go back from sharing the screen back to my picture, so let's have a look. So you should see me in front of the screen again. So let's just review what happened. So there's one more fix to make this actuate. This is really how it works. We're still doing the same thing. Bob still generates all of these padlocks with an infinite number of locks. Only Bob knows the private key, of course. And he's going to send that. But it does one more thing. And that thing is that Bob sends the padlocks off before they send them out to us to a certificate authority. And what certificate authority does is locks up all of these padlocks with their secure key. And they do actually what's called signing. Okay. Now signing reverses the whole thing again. What happens is that the certificate authority sends their public signing key to everybody. It's just as a message. Okay. So Alice and everyone else gets this, has a copy of this. I'll explain how it gets there in a moment. And what happens is that that certificate authority has padlocked up and use that to identify the padlock. So now when Bob sends out the padlocks go over to Alice over here. Alice receives the padlock. Before they believe the padlock, they have a look at the public signing key that the certificate authority has given them, and they look at that, and they can only unlock that and check it. The only way they can unlock that is if it's a genuine padlock generated by the certificate authority. And the evil man in the middle, me, Martin, again, I can't replace this because I don't have that key to unlock that lock. So that way, Alice knows for real that this padlock really has come from Bob. Now, if you're looking at that closely, you'll realize we've got an infinite cycle of how do we get the first thing to client, because what I've said is that the client has this copy of this public signing key. Well, how do we get that to Alice securely? Well, here's how it really works. So this is how the whole of the internet security works. First of all, using RSA to do the security, symmetric encryption as well. But finally, when you purchase a new laptop or a mobile phone, whatever it is, whatever it is you purchase, or just before you purchased it, the vendors, or Apple, Microsoft, Google, whoever it is, what they do is they copy a list of public signing keys, and only a very small number of them, in fact. Well, small number of them. Let's have a look at, so I'll go back to sharing my screen now and actually show you what I can see here. So let's go back to sharing the screen. Okay. So to stop this man in the middle attack, what happens if I get to my key pairs here? So these are all of the keys that I have. Just bring it over to you over here. So you should be able to see my screen now, I hope. Yeah. So you may not be able to read the text, doesn't matter too much. But what happens is there's only a few, I don't know, 100 maybe, of these what's called root certificates. So these are the public signing keys that I was telling you about that we've added to the system. And in fact, I've added one here. I'm not sure if you can see it yet. It has to be my list, I think. I've added one, which I now can't see, which maybe it's under my certificates. Oh, I've added it anyway, but I can't see it on there. This is where the demo falls apart. I can't see it's in the list somewhere, but I've added it manually to that list. So I've become I've said trust this particular root certificate. Now, the reason this works is there's a relatively small number of these, a few hundred, of very well trusted organizations that are going to sign all of the keys that your website. Now, there are millions of websites. So it wouldn't be possible to store all of the keys for all the websites on your laptop. How would they get there? That would be difficult. So what they do is they say, well, let's just have these very small number of root certificates. We trust Microsoft, Google, Firefox, Android, all these organizations, Apple, to securely and check that these are the right certificates on their systems. And then what happens is these certificates will be used to check those padlocks. So those padlocks come from the people they can check. So in fact, we can see that. So if we go back to my particular web page, here we go. I can have a look at it. So you can actually see it in there. And this particular one I've copied. It's not completely secure because I've tricked the system. It says it's verified by University of Essex CA. In fact, it's probably a bit easier to see on a Chrome browser. So I'll just show you on a Chrome browser now. So if we look at the Google one, for example, we can have a look at the certificate. And what you can see is that the certificate of the website is from Google, and it's been signed by someone called Global Sign. Now, Global Sign, I look at it, has been put on my computer by Apple. So I can look down here, and I can find Global Sign. There we go. So there's the root certificate. So Global Sign was used to verify that this particular website, Google, is actually who they say they are. Okay. So this, what we call chain of trust, is absolutely essential. All of the internet security is built on that. So let's just try one more time to access the University of Essex, my fake University of Essex site from here. Now, in this particular browser, I haven't installed my fake root certificate. And if I go there, you'll see you get a warning. Okay, so before it was valid, sort of valid, because I tricked the browser into believing my root certificate. And you can see that it's a fake one if we look at the certificate. I think you can see that MJ Reed Limited Root CA doesn't sound real. That's my name. I've just created a fake one there in this website. And if we look at the real browser, looking at this fake website, we can see a warning. Your connection is not private. Attackers might be able to steal your information. Now, if you see this, it would be tempting to click on advanced because you think, well, I want to access that website. It's telling me I can't. Oh, well, let's click on advanced. You attempted to reach www, but the server presented certificate is validity present too long or to try. Okay, well, I'm just going to go to it anyway. Okay, so I'm going to click on proceed and I can see the page. But the thing is that what could be happening, that man in the middle attack I showed you, where I was able to read my password, could be happening because I've clicked that button. Okay, and the reason is because we haven't checked that those padlocks are going securely across the network. And luckily the browser's showing that. It's showing it's not secure, but if you, well, I've covered the advice is never, ever accept those exceptions. Okay, so you know it's invalid. You should never accept. If it says advanced, you know, click to advance. If any of your people you know are saying, well, can I click advance and accept anyway? The answer is no, never. Particularly if it's something you might care about, which is any username or password, and of course, you know, banking details or things like that. So that's what the students learn about in the course in a lot more depth, and then they actually look at it in the lab and try it out. Where have I gone now? There's my slides. So, so that's what we went through. So I just showed you how that man-in-the-middle attack could actually work, what it might look like. How to stop it? Well, the answer is that you make sure that your certificates are properly signed by the root certificate holders in your, you know, your root certificate list, which is the one here on an Apple machine I'm running on. That's my list. So you should never add one to that list, and you have to hope that Apple do a good job of updating that list, because if they don't, then of course you might be attacked. I think that's roughly all I really wanted to talk about today. So staying safe. You know, I'm sure the people you listen to this, you're probably more technically savvy than many other people. But messages to pass on: always make sure that you're using an HTTPS site, and you can know that you've got the padlock showing in the left of the web browser. So I'll just show you that a couple of times. If the web browser says, well, do you want to, warning, it's not safe, never choose add an exception, never, because you're opening yourself up almost certainly to an attack. The reason it's doing that is because someone's trying to attack your connection. The other message to give people is use a different and complex password for every single application or website that you use. Now, people say, well, how do I actually do that? Well, use a password manager. Now, password manager, there are many out there. I think I've got a few shown. Yeah, so there's a PC Mag's list of best password managers. They're a good solution. Another solution, which people suggest, is if you're really not sure about a password manager, well, write them down on a piece of paper and keep them in your wallet. If you were to, and maybe back it up somewhere very safe at home as well. If you need to lose your wallet, that means you have to change all your passwords, so that's a potential problem. But that's actually quite a secure solution, as long as no one else steals your wallet or sees them written down. But ideally, a password manager with a very secure password to protect that password manager is a good idea. So I've shown you a little bit about the innovative labs we have here at Essex, which allow us to do some ethical hacking in a safe environment. We're not just teaching network security, we are leading network security as well. So as I said, I'm involved in research projects in the area of internet security. This is a standard slide pack they gave me, but I was interested to see that the picture on the bottom left there shows Hill, with his girlfriend at the time, actually, who was one of my PhD students. I just want to add that he left the University of Essex with his PhD, finished his PhD with me. He went straight to work for a company making computer games in Ireland, in fact, and he was one of the security architects for that company. His starting salary was more than my salary here at the University of Essex, I'm pleased to say. You can earn very good money as a security expert, and he's been going on to do that. So there's, the sky's the limit, really. And security is a very interesting area to work in, and an area we teach here at Essex. So I'll conclude there. Hopefully you've learned a bit about security. Please go and find out more about the algorithms or how it works. Please stay safe on the internet. Encourage others to be careful what they're doing. If you are careful, then it's a reasonably secure environment. And I wonder if there are any questions. I'm just going to try and find the chat. I'm not sure if there are.